Hello, everybody. All right, we're going to take a pretty deep dive into everybody's favorite topic, or one of them, I know, composition. There are so many ways to talk about, to think about composition. I guess what I'm going to try to do is give you some helpful tips, some approaches, and hopefully some ideas that you can think about and adapt or reject at will. But I think things that are going to make your painting life easier. I mean, really, that's my goal in all of this. I'm not here to give you rules or recite rules that other people have devised, but talk about them as ways that you can use them, adapt them, or purposefully object to them and change them. Rules of composition are many, and there are rigid purist artists, classically trained artists who know them inside out and who wouldn't change them for anything. For the record, I respect that. I also understand artists who like to bend those rules of composition and twist them for a narrative purpose, and I do that myself. I think it's a valid thing to do. So I'll be getting into that a bit later, but I think it's good to know the basics, to know where these rules come from so that you know when you're breaking them. I mean, I look at a lot of paintings and I think it's fair to say I can see some people breaking rules of composition that they may not know they're breaking. So there are, just like in traffic, there are traffic rules for a reason. So if you break them, you're doing it on purpose, often for a purpose and taking a risk. But in any case, probably you've all heard of the golden mean, the golden ratio. Back in the ancient Greek days, hundreds of years BC, mathematicians studied aesthetics. They tried to find, I guess I would say, objective reasons for proportionality, for harmony, and for beauty, all the way up to the Beaux-Arts era in the 18th and 19th centuries too. They tried very hard to objectify rules for beauty, for harmony, for good design, for good painting. They studied proportionalities and relationships, and there are reams of scholarship, of course, on all of that. I find it just utterly fascinating. The writings and drawings of Da Vinci, of course, most of you are probably familiar with. He was fascinated with it. Euclid, the ancient Greek mathematician, was one of the first ones to come up with some of these mathematical relationships of proportionality, and I think it was the Greek architect Phidias who put them into practice in his sculpture and in some of his architectural designs from many, many years ago. So the golden mean or ratio, just for the record, is sort of an umbrella term that relates to how you divide space. So here in this really simple diagram I worked up, it's a rectangle divided by means of the golden ratio into a collection of rectangles and shapes that refer to this 1 to 1.6, I think it's 1.618 or something, was determined by these ancient Greek mathematicians to be the relationship that was most comfortable, most aesthetically pleasing, produced results of the most harmony. Of course, they studied things other than fine art. They were studying the human body, botanical elements, trees, leaves, sea creatures, yeah, you name it. They found examples of this harmony existing in nature. So yeah, it's very fascinating to read about. I don't intend to go too far down that road. I think for the purposes of us today, especially here, and purposes of painters, the golden mean or the golden ratio, it's sometimes called, is more colloquially or more simply referred to as the rule of thirds. It relates pretty closely. And that simply means if you're working on a piece of paper or a canvas and you divide the shapes of your composition up into thirds, a third over from the left or the right, a third up from the bottom or the top, generally speaking, you're going to end up with a harmonious, comfortable, aesthetically pleasing, solid composition. Absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. I think it's always good to have this in the back of your mind. So when you're doing a painting, of course, you don't have to keep all your dominant elements in the vertical plane exactly at the 1/3 mark. There's a little wiggle room there. I think what it says is if you split your composition directly in half, either in the horizontal or the vertical axis, you end up with two opposing forces that are equal, and that isn't aesthetically comfortable or pleasing necessarily. You end up with two equal things. Neither one of them has dominance. So your composition can look awkward, uncomfortable. You don't know which way it's going. There are plenty of reasons for doing that on purpose, if you know you're doing it. I've done a lot of paintings. Some of you who may look at a lot of my paintings will say, well, you do that all the time. I don't do it all the time, but I do it on occasion. I will split, often a vertical painting, right down the middle on purpose for a narrative effect. I purposefully want to set up that kind of opposing tension. But why I'm bringing all this up, again, not as rules so much, but as an approach, things for you to think about.